The year was 2020. PlayStation just came out of the heels of the 8th generation of consoles, their most successful generation ever. People all over the world were anticipating news on the PS5, the next generation that was hopefully just as good as the 8th generation was. But the news Sony had in mind for consumers, boy, people were not ready for what they were about to hear. PlayStation announced that they were going to put Horizon Zero Dawn, one of their biggest first party games of the 8th generation, on PC. And the response, boy, the response sure was something. You had PlayStation fans on the timeline saying that they were going to sell their consoles, that PlayStation was doomed, and performing rituals to curse the entire bloodlines of PlayStation leadership. Man, some of these people on the timeline were talking like Sasuke Uchiha, I kid you not. All in all, you could say that they took it rather well, for all intents and purposes. PC players, on the other hand, were of course overjoyed at the news that previously PlayStation exclusive games would now start appearing on Steam. Their response to this news was heard loud and clear. Yes, sir, keep 'em coming, and we gon' buy 'em. And they did. Sony ported most of their biggest modern games like God of War and Spider-Man 2018 to PC year after year. But not even a whole console generation later, after a bit over 5.5 years, PlayStation seems to be done with PC gamers. Jason Schreier put out the scoop that Sony is reportedly going to stop porting any of their big single player games to PC from now on. And honestly, I can't blame him, because in my eyes, the writing has been on the wall for years now. So let's get into why PlayStation is walking away from PC gaming. Many of you are probably completely confused when it comes to all this. They've been porting games for years now and nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. The games kept selling and they kept porting them, so why exactly would they stop now? Well, one of the big reasons is probably a steep sales decline, because the games have not been selling well according to Jason Schreier. The first few games that PlayStation ported to PC, that being Horizon and Days Gone, sold multi-million amounts of copies. Like let's say 2 or 3 million, I think, for Horizon and God of War. And Days Gone being one of the biggest sellers among them, which for all intents and purposes is not one of the better PlayStation first party games.
But you may kiss the bride.
Oh, wait a second. Here, you can have this one back. But only if you promise to ride me as much as you ride your bike.
What did I just see? What did I just see?
Even though that is the case, it still sold quite a few million on PC because it was one of the first games that was ported there. When you compare that to recent releases like God of War Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2, these sales have not been going great. Neither of these games reportedly sold over 1 million copies, which is absurd because these games are multi-million sellers on PlayStation. These games have both sold more than 10 million copies already on PlayStation alone. So why are they not selling on PC anymore? There are multiple answers to this question. One of them is most certainly that the novelty factor has completely worn off. At first, it was very exciting. PlayStation games on PC? That doesn't happen. So of course, PC gamers essentially dived in and bought the first few games in wholesale. It being more than 5 years since they started porting these games, PlayStation is more of a known figure on PC now, so the novelty factor is essentially gone. Another big reason is the fact that Sony has employed a strategy to port the games 2 to 1 year after they first released on PlayStation. They probably employed this strategy to still have a console first mentality, because they're a console maker, of course they're going to put their console first, and still make some money on PC later on. Thing is, hype and marketing cannot be just replicated like that. Marketing can technically be replicated, but hype can't. People were really looking forward to God of War Ragnarok, and initially when the game came out, the people that really were into it on PlayStation played it, and the people on PC, well, they had to essentially wait. And when the game later, years down the line, came to PC, the game came out, had little marketing, and of course did not do that extremely well, because the hype is worn off, and people on PC probably went on to play other games at the time. The game still sold copies, but not nearly as many as before, because A, no novelty anymore, and B, the hype is gone. but sales are definitely not the only reason why PlayStation is going to stop putting their first-party single-player games on Steam. The reaction to PlayStation putting their games on PC was quite varied, but the thing is, a very concerning sentiment has started to emerge from PlayStation putting their games on PC. A repeated sentence I've been hearing, and you've probably also come across it on any gaming related social media site, is PlayStation has no games. A label that Xbox has suffered for more than an entire decade. This is probably the worst label you as a console maker can have, because games are your bread and butter, and this statement is essentially just slander, but it's unfortunately effective slander, because everyone knows PlayStation still gets games. We have Elden Ring and stuff like that on it, and the recently released RE9 Requiem, but that's not what anyone is talking about. People are talking purely games that I can only get on that platform, and people in the 8th console generation tore Xbox a new one for not having games. I mean, they absolutely destroyed these niggas for this. Let me tell you that much. And PlayStation now getting this label because they're now unexclusifying the games because they're putting them on PC is certainly not something you want to have attached to it. I mean, people were ruthless. You just had to post something about the PlayStation like, hey, I got my new PS5. And a nigga could easily get a banger on your head by simply quote tweeting you with, notice what he didn't get, or notice what he didn't buy. He didn't buy no damn games. That stuff even extended to just talking about the PS5. People would even get bangers on your head by saying, notice what he's not talking about, games. By putting most of the modern first-party games on PC, PlayStation essentially became a platform with no games in the eye of the public, and that is not a good position to be in, because exclusives are what sell consoles. Exclusives are the lifeblood of a console, and anything in general actually. You go to things because they have something that you want, something that you can't get anywhere else. You know what, I have an example that's probably more relatable to your American viewers. Close your eyes and think of a burger. Nah, I'll just fuck with you niggas. No really, actually think of a burger. Think of Burger King, for example. Burger King is not the biggest burger chain in the world. It's one of the biggest, but the crown most definitely belongs to McDonald's. Burger King could sell a lot more Whoppers if they gave McDonald's the recipe and said, hey, please sell Whoppers in McDonald's. And Whoppers in general would have much larger sales numbers. But the reasons to go to Burger King would diminish by a lot, because if you can get a Whopper at McDonald's, why would you go to Burger King? Maybe other items they have on their menu, but if those items were also sold at McDonald's, what reason is there to go to Burger King? And consoles work the exact same. If I can buy everything that PlayStation makes on PC, wouldn't that make PlayStation a less desirable platform in general? Man, I think both of us know the answer to that question. This was detail, and exclusives matter. So PlayStation no longer supporting PC with their first party games is a good thing. Signing out.